The world stopped watching her at the exact moment she needed them to see. Brilla Grayson sat in the marble lobby of the Monarch Grand, Chicago's most self-assured hotel, a space that practically oozed privilege. She wore a thrifted hoodie, her shoulder-length dreads loose, a battered backpack at her feet. The hotel was all gold-veined stone and glinting glass. She was a pixel out of place. She nursed her mug of mint tea, the warmth trembling just slightly in her hands, as her gaze flicked between her laptop and the lobby's gilded fixtures. Brilla was deep into work, rendering blueprints, adjusting light on 3D models, her mind 1,000 miles away from the velvet ropes and careful stairs. She had 24 hours to finish a pitch that could change her career. The Wi-Fi was perfect, the hum of quiet luxury, a white noise she'd almost tuned out, until she became the signal disruption. The sound of hard-soled shoes, Italian, expensive, arrogant, cracked across the lobby floor. A shadow swept over her keyboard. A man, tall, pale, late 50s, with a razor-sharp suit and an even sharper expression, loomed above her. His presence announced itself like an alarm. "You do not belong here." He didn't bother with a greeting. "Where's your room key?" His tone was jagged, slicing through her train of thought. "This isn't a cafe. Are you lost?" Brilla didn't flinch. "I have a reservation," she replied, voice level, barely looking up. The man snorted. "Show me, or I'll have you removed. I'm the owner of this hotel, and I don't allow loitering." He scanned her up and down, each second spent on her skin an accusation. She tapped the screen, opened her email, flashed her digital booking confirmation. "You can check the system. My name's right there." He didn't even glance. He spun on his heel, barked at the concierge. "Security." "Call them. Now and the police. I have a trespasser here. Unregistered. Suspicious." His words whipped across the marble and carpet, ricocheting off the chandelier. Heads turned. Some guests tried not to stare. Others did so openly. Someone in a business suit started filming, eyes wide with anticipation. The concierge's hand trembled as she reached for the phone. Behind the front desk, a young receptionist exchanged a look with the bellhop, equal parts bored and bracing for a show. A hotel security guard, broad-shouldered and visibly tired, approached with a walkie-talkie crackling at his side. His face was blank, but his pace said he'd done this before. Brilla stood, slow and deliberate, her posture straightening like steel. She placed her laptop in her bag, lifted her chin, and faced the owner squarely. "I don't have to justify myself to you," she said. "But you're going to remember this moment. All of you will." The owner sneered. "Is that so?" In that instant, Brilla's hands stilled, but her heartbeat thundered. Her mind flickered back to her mother's warnings, her grandmother's stories of rooms they were never allowed to enter. She felt the pressure of hundreds of years staring her down, expecting her to apologize, to shrink, to leave quietly and be grateful for the opportunity to disappear. But she did not disappear. As the security guard drew closer, voices rose. Someone muttered, "Just let her be." Another whispered, "Here we go again." Phones hovered in the air, hungry for spectacle. Every eye became a judge. Brilla's jaw clenched, her voice steady but icy. "Tonight, I'm presenting the most important project of my life. I worked for this, paid for this, booked it just like every other guest, so you can call whoever you want. I'm not leaving, not until you see me." For a heartbeat, the world balanced on a razor's edge, the hush of the lobby pressing in, the owner's face going crimson with indignation, security standing by. the staff caught between rules and shame. Then, through the glass doors, the city lights blinked, and the hotel's grand illusion of order teetered. The first cracks appeared, not in Brilla's resolve, but in the mask of the place itself. No one moved. Even time seemed to hold its breath. The lobby's marble hush shattered, heels clicking, glass doors parting. A new sound, sharp and inevitable as a coming storm. Brilla stood motionless, her body a wire strung too tight, as all eyes tracked the woman entering. She cut through the golden light with a force that bent the air. Silver hair slicked into a perfect bob, eyes like storm clouds, suit pressed to a knife edge. Michelle Grayson. She was everything the monarch grand aspired to be. Elegant, unyielding, in absolute command. The room felt her presence like weather rolling in. The sudden static, the tightening breath, the sense that every rule was about to change. For one terrible second, Brilla's composure cracked. Not because she was scared. She'd learned to live in the crosshairs of doubt. But because, in this frozen crowd, she recognized the shape of her mother's silhouette. The way her stride dared the world to make room for her. Michelle saw everything in an instant. The security guard shifting awkwardly, the pale-faced owner practically vibrating with power and embarrassment, the black girl standing defiant but alone. She scanned the faces, measured the distance, and decided whose side she was on. What's happening here? Michelle's voice cracked the silence, a gunshot in a velvet box. The security guard hesitated, suddenly looking small. The owner, caught mid-glare, tried to twist his face into a polite smile. Michelle, good to see you. There's been a misunderstanding. This young woman, well, she's not a guest. She's loitering. I asked for her key, and she couldn't produce it. Brilla burned with shame and fury, but her voice didn't break. I have a reservation. I showed him. Michelle's gaze never left Brilla. She closed the gap, heels tapping in time with the girl's racing pulse. Something passed between them, old pain layered over new pride. She opened her arms, not for show, but with an urgency that made the crowd inhale. She hugged her daughter fiercely, then turned, still holding Brilla's shoulder as if to steady her and the whole trembling room. This is my daughter, my pride, the lead architect of the Rebuild Chicago project. She's here by right. Are you? The question landed like a thunderclap. The owner's composure crumbled. He glanced at the security guard for help, but found none. You never said you had a daughter. A black daughter? A brilliant one? One with a Princeton scholarship and more talent than half the men in this lobby? Michelle's tone was surgical, stripping every layer of polite fiction from his face. What's the problem, Mr. Baker? That she doesn't look like your usual guests? Or that she's better than them? The staff behind the desk tried to disappear into the wallpaper. Guests shifted uncomfortably, the glow of their phones flickering between guilt and curiosity. No one wanted to meet Michelle's eyes. Brilla felt something shift inside her. Shame draining away, replaced by a steel she'd forgotten she carried. But Mr. Baker wasn't done. He rallied, face blotchy, voice rising. This isn't about race. It's about security, standards. You can't have what? Michelle cut in, voice cold as an ice pick. Young black women using Wi-Fi in your lobby, professionals who don't fit your prejudices, or maybe you just can't have someone who won't bow her head when you demand it. He sputtered, mouth opening and closing, but the spell had broken. The crowd was no longer silent. Whispers, mutters, a low ripple of indignation. The security guard stepped back, suddenly re-examining his role. Brilla straightened her shoulders. For years, she'd been taught that the price of survival was silence. Don't make a scene. Don't talk back. Don't make it worse. But the world had changed. Her world had changed. If you couldn't claim your space here, you couldn't claim it anywhere. Her mother squeezed her hand. Get your things. You're coming with me. Something in Mr. Baker snapped. This is my hotel. You can't just... But he never finished. Michelle had already pulled out her phone. Her fingers danced over the screen, firing off a text to someone high enough to eclipse even Baker's imagined power. Check your plaque, she said, voice suddenly bored. Check your contracts, and check tomorrow's news. Because if I see even a hint of discrimination or retaliation in this place, you'll wish it was just a social media story. The threat hung in the air, shimmering. The owner watched as the concierge began quietly removing his nameplate from the front desk. The security guard looked everywhere but at Brilla. Michelle and Brilla walked out together, the weight of centuries trailing in their wake. The crowd parted, some in silent solidarity, some in awkward avoidance. A few guests tried to film, but the moment already belonged to Brilla, her chin up, her jaw set, her every movement a declaration. I am not your assumption. I am not your problem to solve. The glass doors hissed open, and the city swept over them. Wind sharp, air cold, neon and noise humming with possibility. They stepped into the car, doors shutting on the stunned lobby behind them. Michelle finally exhaled, the air leaving her lungs in a rush. Brilla stared at the city lights, the anger still burning in her chest. You shouldn't have had to do that. Michelle reached over, brushed a dread from her face. Neither should you. They drove in silence, the skyline sliding past, both lost in the same storm of memory. The way people had looked at them all their lives, the doors that had been shut, the ones they'd kicked open, the ones they still dreamed of, building, but in the back seat, Brilla's phone buzzed. Emails, calendar invites, news alerts. The story was spreading. People were watching now. She scrolled through the flood of messages. Some supportive, some angry, some simply curious. One subject line stopped her. Architect needed. Lead the rebuild project. Immediate placement. Her hands shook. Anger, adrenaline, possibility all tangled together. For the first time all day, Brilla smiled. But the fight wasn't over. The world didn't just hand over justice because you made a scene. She would have to walk into the boardroom tomorrow, into rooms like the Monarch Grand, rooms built to keep people like her out, and claim her place. Not because she was invited, but because she belonged. Tonight, though, she let herself lean back against the seat, feeling the warmth of her mother's hand, and closed her eyes. She pictured the building she would design, a place where no one would ever be asked to prove they belonged. Outside, the city lights blurred. Silver, gold, the color of hope. The boardroom at the Monarch Grand was designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a city skyline glinting like polished armor, a marble table that seemed to go on forever. At the far end, executives huddled in dark suits, faces set and expectant. At the center, reserved for the guest of honor, sat an empty chair. Brilla entered flanked by her mother, Michelle, whose presence signaled that no one would dare treat this meeting as business as usual. The doors closed with a soft click that echoed louder than any gavel. All eyes fell on Brilla. No hoodie this time. Today she wore a sharp, tailored jacket, her dreads swept back, her presence unmistakable. Some in the room saw a threat. Others saw a test. But Brilla felt none of it. She had already survived the real trial in the lobby last night. This was just the aftermath. At the head of the table sat Ronald Baker, face pale, eyes flickering with a nervous energy he couldn't hide. The plaque bearing his name was already missing. In its place, a blank spot, waiting for history to decide what to call him. He tried to recover some dignity. "Thank you for joining us, Ms. Grayson. There's been—" Brilla didn't let him finish. She walked to the head of the table and set her laptop down, her movements calm and practiced. The room watched as she connected to the projector, her hands steady as if nothing in the world could shake her now. Her first slide was not the architectural marvel she'd prepared for the competition. Instead, the screen filled with photos, faces, neighborhoods, empty lots full of rubble and memory. "This is Chicago," she began, her voice clear and carrying. "Not the one in your brochures, the real one, the one we're here to rebuild." A hush settled as Brilla moved through her presentation. She spoke not just of steel and glass, but of people. Kids who walked past crumbling schools. Elders whose stories were written in brick and broken pavement. Families invisible to the men who'd built these towers, but not to her. As she spoke, her words gathered force. Every doubt the room had about her faded with each slide, each fact, each line of vision and hope. She spoke their language, profits, timelines, investment, but twisted it into something they couldn't ignore. Legacy, justice, pride. The final image was a digital rendering of her design, an impossibly bright, open community center. Sunlight pouring in through arched glass, walls that honored the city's black architects and builders. It was beautiful. It was revolutionary, and it was impossible to imagine without her at the helm. When she finished, there was a beat of stunned silence. Ronald Baker swallowed hard, struggling to summon authority. "Impressive, Ms. Grayson, but you must understand, these decisions require a certain decorum, professionalism. We have standards." Brilla smiled, a small, dangerous smile. "And your standards almost cost you the future of this project." He tried again, weaker. "I apologize for—" Michel's voice cut through, low and precise. "You should apologize to everyone who watched last night. And you should consider what it means that your own staff removed your name before we even arrived." A ripple ran through the room. It was not fear, though Baker surely felt it, but the collective realization that the balance of power had shifted. Brilla closed her laptop. "If you want my design, if you want to rebuild this city for all its people, I need more than an apology. I need a team. I need decision-making power. And I need your public commitment to never letting what happened in that lobby happen to anyone in this building again." A pause. Someone at the far end cleared their throat. "If you'll let me," an older woman said quietly, "I'd like to move that Ms. Grayson be appointed lead architect with a direct line to the board." One by one, hands went up. Not everyone, but enough. Ronald Baker slumped, defeated. So be it. The tension snapped. Michelle smiled at her daughter, pride radiating in a way words could never express. Brilla's heart hammered, but her face was calm, unreadable, a fortress built from every slight, every question, every closed door. Outside the boardroom, the hotel lobby hummed with new energy. Guests checked in, staff moved briskly, but there was a new plaque at the reception. "The Monarch Grand, a place for all Chicago." As Brilla walked out, a bellhop, young, black, eyes wide, caught her sleeve. "Thank you," he whispered, "for not letting them win." Brilla nodded. This is only the beginning." She left the hotel not just as a guest, not just as an architect, but as a symbol. Phones buzzed. News of her appointment already spreading. Twitter trended. Number Brilla belongs. That night, in her new office, windows overlooking the city she was about to change, Brilla pulled out a notebook, old and battered, the kind her grandmother used to carry. She wrote a single line. Build the kind of world where no one ever has to prove they deserve to exist. The city glimmered below, alive, unfinished, waiting for new hands. And in the quiet that followed, Brilla finally let herself believe. Not only did she belong, she was exactly where she was needed.